What happens to a forest garden, or specifically my forest garden, when you do nothing for 8 months? I suppose 6 of those 8 months, well, at least 3 of them have been deep winter, so nothing's been growing anyway. But for the rest of them, they've been quite warm and wet, and things have been growing. To put it simply, anything above knee height has absolutely thrived. So things like the trees and the shrubs and the vines, of which they're mostly at that end. So trees and shrubs and vines have absolutely thrived. Well, and the mushrooms have done very well as well, actually. And the bees. Yeah, so trees, shrubs, vines, mushrooms, bees, and some of the hardiest perennial vegetables have absolutely thrived. And what has not thrived? Anything below knee height in which the grass can ingress into the beds and swamp it. So it sort of found its natural balance. And this year, I don't think I'm even going to bother with any annuals. I'm just going to try and maintain and save what I have, and then start again next year in 2024 with trying to get the ground layer re-established again, and maybe not going too over the top, because before I boasted that I had about 440 edible species growing, and now, after neglect and geese and all sorts, there's probably more like 280. But the 280 species that are growing, I know will do really well here without any extra care or maintenance. On a hill
near a wood
where nobody goes,
up a track
through a gate,
The food forest grows with secrets and treasures for everyone's pleasure, and Rob's discovery.
Hello, and welcome back to the forest garden, and especially a big welcome back to me. That's right, because I've not been living here for quite some time, and I'm still not actually. I spent very, very little time here over the last 8 months. The last time I did any work whatsoever here in the garden was August. It's now April the 2nd, and it has been nearly 12 years since I first started living here on site, setting up the garden. It has been, as I said, 8 months since I've done any work here whatsoever. It has been 6 years to the day since I made my first Rob's Discovery video, and it has been 10 years, almost to the day, since I planted my very first tree here. And that was a little seedling that my dad planted from an acorn, and he gave it to me for my 30th birthday. I'm giving away my age now. Would you like to see it? This mighty oak, 10 years old. This is a little update to show you what happens to a garden, specifically a forest garden in this case, when it is neglected for 8 months. It's a very low maintenance garden anyway, and it's almost completely self-sustaining. But it's a very interesting experiment. Well, the whole thing is an experiment, a 12-year-long experiment so far. It's not over yet, but it's very interesting to see what happens when you do nothing for 8 months. What has thrived and what has not. I mean, the garden is mature enough so that most of the symbiotic relationships are taking place between the trees and the plants. And the main element of maintenance is mowing the grass paths, which those lazy geese are supposed to do. Well, they do a marvellous job. they just mow a lot more than they should, hence why they are now confined within Jurassic Park, delineated by this electric fence that runs around all the important specimens within the garden in like a big light bulb shape. So the geese have access right around the access path, around the outside where all the meadow areas are, but they cannot get into this big light bulb shape in the middle here. So you can see that this is all beautifully goose mown grass, and incidentally 3 hungry geese eat as much as 1 sheep, although the grass isn't that lush yet, so I do give them a scoop of mixed grain every day, which they're very much looking forward to. And this is the grass they haven't munched, and it's just starting to grow again now. I've come back here today to actually do some work and kickstart the gardening year with something that should have been done last summertime, but I've left it to the very last moment, and that is, we're standing in the wrong place for this, strimming or brush cutting or whippersnippering, depending where you're from, the meadow areas. This is something I've talked about before, but just to reiterate, the forest garden has a band of natural wildflower meadow round the outside, which has myriad benefits. I don't need to go on about the benefits of a wildflower meadow. I can if you'd like me to. But what needs to happen is, because wildflower meadows would naturally be grazed by migrating herbivores, because it's managed by people now, well, i.e. me in this case, it needs to be artificially grazed by brush cutting it and removing all the herbage, so that this thatch of dead grass and other foliage doesn't suppress all the wildflowers that are about to push back up through at any moment. So that's today's job. Well, not all of it, but to begin it. But not having been here for so long, the other really important thing is the man-made structures, i.e. the kitchen yurt and the shepherd's hut bedroom over there, were getting, or indeed are, extremely damp. So I've just spent the last 2 hours taking or bailing all the water that's accumulated in the wood burning stoves, gathering dry kindling and sticks and lighting good hot fires to dry them out. Fortunately, the mice haven't moved into the yurt, thanks to this gauze I've buried around the outside to stop mice. And they can't climb into the roof because of these flower pots, so the mice can't get into there. The yurt still smells fresh, fortunately, because it's so well built. But it was getting damp, so I've lit a good hot fire here. Lots of water had to come out of that before I lit the fire, and the beautiful Squirrel Morso multi-fuel stove was at the risk of rusting, but I caught it just in time. I still have been collecting the eggs from the poultry. These are chicken eggs. These are from, what are they from? Black Rocks. It's a silky egg, little bantam egg, 3 duck eggs, goose egg, first of the season, laid last week, and I did actually salvage some pumpkin seeds from one of the rotting pumpkins to dry out and plant, well, quite soon, hopefully. The cider is still sitting there from where I pressed the apples back in August, that was. I did manage to salvage a few lemons from the greenhouse after it blew down. I've used most of them, but those are the forgotten lemons. Oh dear. Yep, that's all the mashua. It started to sprout. That needs to go back in the ground. But apart from those few things, I've done no work here. So I have done a little bit actually. I did harvest the... Oh, where are the potatoes gone? I harvested some potatoes and the mashua and the lemons and a few pumpkin seeds and collected some eggs. But yeah, so first thing today is to get these fires lit. So there's the... Oh, look at that. Look at that, the smoke. I don't know if you can see it, but the smoke is blowing to the south. So there must be a north wind today, which usually indicates snow or very cold weather. 9 times out of 10, well, 19 times out of 20, the wind blows from the south here, off the Severn Estuary, over the Mendip Hills, down into the garden. But it's blowing from the north, which is partly what these tall poplar and birch trees are about, is a north windbreak just there. And you can see that the fire burning in the shepherd's hut, yeah, the smoke's going to the north. Very unusual. I'll show you around the garden in a moment. Let's just go into the hut first, see if the fire's going okay. That's all the water I was bailing out. Most of it got on the floor. Ah, it's nice and warm in here. It's pretty cold outside today. Hello, Pulsipher. Yeah, that'll do for now. Okay, back to the garden. But perhaps a quick word on the animals first. What has happened to all the animals? Well, I keep saying I haven't been here for 8 months, but I actually have been here to do those few little jobs that you saw in the yurt. The potatoes, mashua, lemons, pumpkin seeds, and collecting the eggs. But I have been coming here twice a day, at dawn and dusk, to tend to the animals, to let the ducks and chickens out, and then put them away at dusk and give them supplementary food and water, and collect any eggs. But because my presence here is now, well, very little, unfortunately all the ducks, apart from one very lucky drake, have been eaten. 16 ducks have been eaten. The one drake I've given to my mum, so he holds the line, he holds the family line of the khaki Campbells. And those 3 duck eggs in there, I suspect they're fertile. So as soon as I have access to a broody chicken, I'm going to slip them underneath her and try and restart the flock of khaki Campbells to repopulate the garden again. The chickens, I'm not sure if it was a stoat or a weasel, but I wasn't here. And my mum was looking after the chickens, and they all got eaten. Well, not completely, but killed. All apart from 2 remaining chickens that were found huddling in a corner. One of them was Chamomile, the white silky. So Christina, who the chickens came from, if you're hearing this for the first time, sorry you had to hear it through a video, not from me, but Licorice. Yeah, Licorice is gone. Licorice the silky. And I'm not sure if I posted a public video or if it was just for my patrons on the Telegram group, but also one of the geese got killed as well. The big, vicious male, the gander, called Beulah, named after my grandmother. He sacrificed himself fighting off a fox. I actually have video footage of that, so if I haven't included it already somewhere, I will in an upcoming video. So there are now just 3 geese left in the garden. It's very quiet without all the ducks and chickens, and these are quite subdued because that was their main entertainment. They need a lot of stimulation, do geese, so the ducks and chickens were their entertainment. And they don't see me very much at the moment, although they will do again soon, as I do more and more work here as we're now in the gardening season. Hello. Would you like your daily scoop of grain yet? Would you? Okay, maybe in a minute. Well, definitely in a minute. So the garden. What happens to a forest garden or specifically my forest garden, when you do nothing for 8 months. I suppose 6 of those 8 months, well, at least 3 of them have been deep winter, so nothing's been growing anyway. But for the rest of them, they've been quite warm and wet, and things have been growing. And even though it's now 13 minutes into the video, to put it simply, anything above knee height has absolutely thrived. So things like, well, the trees and the shrubs and the vines, of which, well, they're mostly at that end. So trees and shrubs and vines have absolutely thrived. Well, and the mushrooms have done very well as well, actually. And the bees. Yeah, so trees, shrubs, vines, mushrooms, bees, and some of the hardiest perennial vegetables have absolutely thrived. And what has not thrived? Anything below knee height in which the grass can ingress into the beds and swamp it. So it sort of found its natural balance. And this year, I don't think I'm even going to bother with any annuals. I'm just going to try and maintain and save what I have, and then start again next year in 2024 with trying to get the ground layer re-established again, and maybe not going too over the top, because before I boasted that I had about 440 edible species growing, and now, after neglect and geese and all sorts, there's probably more like 280. But the 280 species that are growing, I know will do really well here without any extra care or maintenance. So the things that have survived, well, all the trees and shrubs and vines and mushrooms. Licorice, yet to be seen. Yet to be seen. I think it's okay. I think licorice is okay. Tree collards, my favourite. Tree kale. Cuttings everywhere. They are doing fantastically, and I shall eat some this very day and make some more crisps, I expect. Salt and pepper and a bit of olive oil in the oven. Oh, lovely. Cardoons. The cardoons are coming back. They're doing well. As I say, all the shrubs are doing well. All the berry bushes, all the spice bushes. What's that? That's a Californian allspice. Budding beautifully. Ah, the almond blossoms are back. Oh yeah. That eucalyptus needs a severe coppicing. I keep coppicing it right down to 2/3 height, and it just keeps growing again and again. It's shadowing the solar panels on the yurt at the moment. But because I'm not here, I'm not really using much electric, so it's fine. Oh, the perennial leeks are unstoppable. In fact, these have spread from over there in the last year. That's the mother clump. And they've spread over there. Oh, Babington's leeks. You've made a comeback. Well done, Babington's leeks. As have the Welsh onions. The grass doesn't seem to bother them whatsoever. Nettles. I haven't intentionally planted them there, but they are ever so useful. Love nettles. The creeping borage. That's out competing the grass wonderfully. Ooh, what's that? I didn't plant that. Looks good though. It is absolutely fascinating how what one needs health-wise and medicinally usually turns up in your garden just when you need it. Although we often don't have the wisdom to look for it, and even if we find it, don't know what to do with it. But we've got a lot of invisible help, and if we seek, we find. I'm finding that increasingly more so. so many things here I haven't planted, but they've just turned up just at the right time. Ah, the sweet clumping edible bamboo. Well done. Yep, globe artichoke. Oh, and a few of the mashua I didn't dig up. They're coming back as well. Although many don't consider them a true perennial, I would put them in the class like potatoes as a replant perennial. So you dig them all up, eat what you want, about 2/3 or a half of them, or even more actually, and then you replant what you haven't eaten in the spring to start again. Although I think they're a true perennial because you never dig them all up and they always sprout back out the ground again. So like oca, mashua, yacon, potatoes, all those other really useful carbohydratey wintry rooty crops. This is the demonstration garden. It's mostly annuals, but they were all beautifully companion planted. This one here and this one here. It's difficult to see what's what because it's so overgrown. I was going to do, and still will do, a special video about this demonstration garden because people come here and look at this 2.5 acre plot and they say, oh, it's great having 500 edible species growing on this 2 acres and everything, but I've only got a 20-foot by 30-foot little suburban town garden. What can I possibly grow? So I've taken 50 of the most reliable and best specimens that grow in the plot, and I've planted them all in little guilds. So I've companion planted them in this 20-foot by 30-foot garden. It's a mixture of annuals and of perennials, but it's very interesting how probably half of what I ate last year came from this little garden and the other half came from the rest of the garden, which is huge. However, in terms of time, this garden took about half my time tending to it. The planting the seeds and the plant potting up, the planting out, the watering, the weeding, the watering, the weeding, then the harvesting and all the neediness. Yet about half of the produce came from this small patch. So, and it's mostly annuals. So that just goes to show annuals versus perennials, both are worth it. It just depends how much space you have and how much effort you want to put in. You can easily feed yourself or a family from a small plot, but it just takes a lot more work. So in terms of square footage, you get a lot more yield from annuals. But then perennials, once they get established, take a lot less maintenance, but you need more space. I mean, there are other advantages and disadvantages too. Like perennial vegetables or perennial plants generally have a higher nutrient content because they have more time to establish their roots, and the roots go deeper searching for more minerals, and they accrue more, and they're often a lot hardier, and also there's seldom a glut. There's always something throughout the year because they have different flowering and fruiting and harvesting times, whereas annuals on the whole, it's sort of September, isn't it, when you dig them all up or pick them all and then have to process them and store them. But that's putting it quite basically. But I've used the keyhole bed method, where there's like a crescent of soil around the outside, and then again like a keyhole shape that you stand in the middle, which means you never have to step on any of the beds, because if you step on a bed then it's just wasted space. You might as well have a path there. So this is supposed to be quite efficient. So there's like a double keyhole shape there and there. But it's interesting what has survived. I planted this garden exactly 1 year ago as well. It was in April last year, 2022. As I said, 2022. It's exactly 22 minutes and 22 seconds now, the video. The garlic has thrived. Garlic, very good companions for this dwarf apple tree and a cherry tree. There's even a wild apricot there as well. It's amazing what you can get in a small garden. There's a lot I didn't plant, like this pennycress or landcress or hairy bittercress as it's called. This is fantastic. It's got vitamin A and K and C, I believe. Very calcium rich, lots of iron. That just grows everywhere. It's fantastic stuff. Oh, the goosegrass. I need more goosegrass in my life. What's that, geese? You do too? Okay, I'll bring you some goosegrass. They're always after goosegrass, hence its name. But it's quite popular knowledge. But I did feature it in my botanical coastal foraging video, the one with the horse box. But this time of year especially, it's really good to make a cold brew of goosegrass, soak it in spring water overnight or for 12 hours, and then drink that melony tasting concoction. And it's so good for just clearing you out. It clears your kidneys and all your, I was going to say all your fuel system, but I'm thinking your vehicles now. But yes, it's really, really good for you. And I shall be doing that later today and for the next few days, just cleansing myself with goosegrass cold infusion water. Other names for goosegrass: sticky willy, cleavers, sticky buds, and other things too. Sun gold tomatoes. The tomato that just keeps on giving. I had so many this year, and I made so much tomato sauce that I'm still eating to last the winter. Is that dog barking in the distance getting to you too? It's making my ears spin a little bit. Let's move to the south. Maybe the sound will be a bit more distant then. Yeah, sunflowers, melons. Anyway, I can talk more about companion planting in depth at some point, but this was absolutely thriving. Oh, what's that that's made it? What's that? Did I plant those? Oh, the onions! I completely forgot to harvest the onions. There they are, amongst the docks and nettles. Oh, the scorzona has made it. I've never harvested this. I believe you eat the roots. That's a perennial. And that was a very good companion to the onions and other stuff. Anyway, I've got to move away from that dog barking. And around the outside of this particular annual garden were all the currant and berry bushes. There's a josterberry and blackcurrant, some Eleagneses for good measure because they're brilliant nitrogen fixers, and you get a berry crop depending which version of Eleagnus it is. You get a spring berry or an autumn berry, and lots of flowers, very good for pollinators and the bees. And a rogue buddleia. I don't remember planting that, but well, it's turned up. I'm happy to leave it. This is pretty much established and finished. There's the fertility powerhouse at the forest garden. There are many of these. The Italian red alder, the ultimate nitrogen fixer. There's another one over there. Japanese plum or loquat. And of course the loganberries. They've gone berserk. Oh, I get such a good crop from these. Yep, and as every Sunday, now someone has started a chainsaw over there. So we got a dog barking to the north. I know whose dog it is actually. You just let him out to bark and bark and bark. And actually I'm one to talk because in a minute I'm going to be doing some strimming with my petrol brush cutter, so there's going to be a lot of noise in a minute, so I'll be adding to the noise pollution, although I do try and keep it to a minimum, and not on a Sunday, but you know, needs must in this case. I am slowly becoming battery powered with the tools. I've got many battery powered power tools now, but I thought I might as well get the most of life out of the petrol strimmer whilst I got it. Rosa Ragosa. Yeah, had a really good crop of rose hips. Ow! Silly me. Spiky, spiky. Ooh. Ooh. Loganberry's tripping me up. Ah, the sweet Sicily. thought the chickens had finished that off. One, oh, it smells divine. Well, I won't go around all 280 plants, but it just gives you an overview of what's worked and what hasn't. So this is now a half an hour video. I could have just said, when the forest garden is left, the grass takes over, and anything above grass height is fine. Anything below grass height mostly dies, unless it's really well established, like the few things I just showed you. There. That sums it up. You don't have to watch the whole half hour video now. Pear blossom. Oh yeah. Siberian pea shrubs. It's a Lonicera, it's a honeyberry. More honeyberries. Oh, it's going to be an apple year again. The apples are coming back. Oh. I can't work out where the... Oh, there we are. Hello, buddy. Ah, daffodils. It must be April. Is that a buzzard? No. Is it a kestrel? Don't know. Have a look in a minute. My favourite scent in the world. Apricot blossom. Oh yeah. There are 3 apricot trees here. There is one rogue apricot, that's a wild apricot. I dug up a sucker from Dr. Tony, a man I was working for down in Wiveliscombe. He has the most beautiful apricot tree in his polytunnel, but it's a grafted one. There's a rootstock and then there's a graft, which is why he gets such good fruit. But I dug up a sucker that he wanted digging out where it spread. And then year after year, I tried to, well I did, I took a cutting from the top half of the tree, is it a scion or a scion? I forget how you say it, to graft onto the rootstock. But it died each year. However, the rootstock, which is some wild spike apricot, has thrived. And there it is. It does give good fruit, but it's not the same as the cultivated variety, if I were to have grafted it correctly. Oops. And then there's this. This is also an apricot tree that I bought, but the top has died and the graft has grown, so I'm not sure what variety the rootstock was, but it hasn't given fruit yet. But the smell. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm not sure it's going to do so well outside because they do prefer a lot of shelter. This colony of honeybees is doing extraordinarily well, and when it was sunny the other day, they were flying and collecting blossom, nectar and pollen, mostly from the hazel catkins. A really good source of early protein for them. I don't think the bees in the Warray hive have made it. I daren't open it yet, just in case they have. I don't want to give them a blast of cold air in case they're just hanging on in there. Raspberries always do well. Especially if you let them move around as they like to do. Rhubarb! I forgot all about you. I've not seen you for a year. Oh, you're so ready for harvesting. Yes! Look at those tender long red stalks. They are wonderful. I think there's a rhubarb fool on the cards. Just need some light stewing, maybe with a little bit of brown sugar, and then liquidize it up with some cream. Oh yeah, keep talking. Okay, well that's what I'm doing today, isn't it? It makes me a bit sad to come down here and see the greenhouse that blew away in the wind, that magnificent geodome, the geodesic dome greenhouse. It looks like the lemon trees haven't made it, the avocados haven't made it, nor the mangoes, nor the pineapples. The grapevines look okay, as does the peach tree. It's about to come out with fine pink blossoms. At least I won't have to remember to open the door of the greenhouse this year to let the bees in to pollinate it, because it's out in the open. Will we get peaches? Time will tell. And the mint that I'd grown around the outside as a companion plant for lots of the specimens in here, it has broken the bounds, and also to stabilise the bank, it has broken the bounds of the greenhouse and it has escaped into the garden. So when will it stop? Who knows? I saw some frog spawn in these bathtubs the other day. These officially have the swamp potatoes or the broadleaf arrowheads in them, and they should still be in there. But where's that frog spawn? The ducks aren't here, so they wouldn't have eaten it like caviar like they normally do. Oh, where's that water coming from? Well, there's been such biblical rain recently, it could have sprung up from anywhere. Ah, the Taunton Dean kale, the perennial kale, looks good. Lots of things. Oh, the stitchwort. Look at that stitchwort. A fine ground cover companion for anything brassica based. Oh, it's going to be a very cherry plum year as well. Look at that cherry plum blossom. This is really just a soft fruit garden, really. All soft fruit has done spectacularly without any effort whatsoever apart from planting it. Well, we're coming to 35 minutes. Have you seen enough? Yeah, that's probably long enough. Let's give the hungry geese some grain. Then I'll actually get on and do some strimming. Brush cutting the meadows before it rains. Hello. Ooh, pepper tree looks good. All right, hissers, all right. Don't have a hissy fit. We're supposed to laugh, that was a joke. Go on then. Here you go. Hello. No, not hungry? Maybe the grass is lusher than I thought. They normally come running for that. Or maybe they just give me the silent treatment because I've neglected them for so long. It's the sort of thing geese would do, especially these geese. All right, well, once again, plum blossom. Once again, thank you very much for watching. See you before too long. Have a beautiful springtime. And oh, horses. That wasn't to you. I've seen the ponies, I've seen some horses. Horses to you too. Oh, and kiwi vines to you too. Oh yeah. These are the two female kiwis. Hello. Hello. I don't have carrots today. That was just yesterday. Amber, hello, all right, hello. Oh, yes, I know. Hello, Charlie. Hello, all right, hello. Nice to see you too. Well, I best tend to that fire as well. No bees in there, sadly. This is the male kiwi vine growing up a lime tree, and he is supposed to pollinate those two females on the fence. But it's been 9 years and not a single kiwi fruit in sight, so I don't think he's doing his job properly. This was the last project I was working on back in September before I abandoned the garden. This is going to be I've been calling it the snack shack or the snack cave. What's it really called? A root cellar. It's going to have straw bale lime rendered walls sitting on this raised stone wall on the outside. It's always said with straw bale building it needs a good hat and good boots. So it's got a good hat in terms of the at least 1 foot overhang of roof all around the outside. That's going to have a waterproof membrane over it, and then that soil, all that turf, is going back on the roof again. And it's got good boots, a good dry wall to keep it off the ground. And it's going to have circular shelves inside, and this is where all the annual produce will be stored for over the winter. I haven't had to store anything before really because of going down the perennial route where I could just forage for things throughout the winter as and when they're needed. But because I've decided to grow more annuals next year, just due to their reliability and, well, because I know about them really, well, and other reasons, I've decided to go down the traditional annual and then storing things in the root cellar route. Root cellar route. I said goodbye about 10 minutes ago, didn't I? I'm still talking. Okay, time to tend to that fire. They still haven't touched that grain. Taking off my boots. Oh, nice ash log. Ash is always good. Give it some air. That'll be roaring hot in a few seconds. Okay, bye again. Bye. Where's the button? Who's got the button? The stop button. I can't get to grips with these newfangled devices. Okay. Ah, there it is. Okay.